He was the ultimate gym bro, muscles, confidence, and a life dedicated to strength. But beneath that tough exterior, June was hiding a secret that would change everything. This is the story of how June transformed not just her body, but her entire life, and found a love that was waiting all along. June is the kind of man who turns heads the moment he steps into a room, not for flamboyance or flash, but for the sheer intensity of his presence, towering at over 6 feet, with broad shoulders sculpted from years of weightlifting. He is the textbook image of a gym bro. His biceps stretch the sleeves of every t-shirt he owns, and his mornings begin not with coffee, but with protein shakes, deadlifts, and discipline. To most, June is simple to define: confident, physically dominant, obsessed with gains. But to June himself, identity is not so easily labeled. At 28, June has built a life around consistency and control. He wakes at 5 a.m. sharp, drinks exactly 40 grams of whey protein, and follows a strict 6-day workout split. His meals are measured in macros, and his calendar is carved around leg day, push day, and pull day. He lives for the pump, for the burn, for the moment his muscles fail, because failure, to June, is the birthplace of growth. Among his circle of friends, other men with similarly shredded physiques and motivational tattoos, June plays the role he knows is expected of him, the confident, slightly cocky, hyper-masculine leader of the pack. He gives tips on form, preaches the gospel of hypertrophy, and laughs loudest at jokes about weakness. He's respected, admired, sometimes envied, but rarely questioned. And that suits him fine on the outside. Inside, however, June is a different story. The mirror is his oldest companion, his harshest critic, and lately, the only place where he dares to ask the questions he can't speak aloud. Beneath the muscle and bravado lies a current of identity confusion that June has struggled to articulate, even to himself. It's not just about gender or sexuality, though those thoughts swirl in the background. It's deeper, a disconnection between the image he's built and the person who occasionally peers through the cracks. There are nights when June lingers alone in his apartment, the weight of silence heavier than any dumbbell. He scrolls through social media, pausing on posts that don't fit the world he publicly aligns with: art, poetry, soft vulnerability, and even gender-fluid fashion. He feels drawn to these expressions, but never interacts, afraid the algorithm might expose something he's not ready to reveal, not even to himself. Fitness, to June, has always been a form of armor, both literal and symbolic. It gave him structure when his thoughts felt chaotic. It gave him a role when he didn't know who he was, and most importantly, it gave him a way to suppress the swirling uncertainty about identity that he's carried since his teenage years. In the gym, identity didn't matter. Effort did. Strength did. In that space, he could be someone certain. But now, that certainty is beginning to unravel. He wonders if the persona he's crafted is truly who he is, or who he thought he needed to become in order to be accepted, respected, even loved. He begins to question whether masculinity, as he performs it, is authentic or a shield. These thoughts don't come all at once, and when they do, he buries them under another set of bench presses or protein meal prep. Yet, they persist, subtle but constant. June is at a crossroads, a man split between two realities. One, a world of barbells, routine, and social validation. The other, an uncharted realm of self-discovery, one that terrifies him precisely because it lacks definition. He is strong, yes, But strength, he is learning, is not only about lifting. Sometimes it's about facing what you spent years avoiding. And for June, that might just be the hardest workout yet. June met Aryan during their first year at university. Both had arrived early for orientation, nervously scanning the unfamiliar campus with oversized backpacks and undercooked confidence. They started talking while waiting in line for ID cards. That was the beginning. By sophomore year, they were inseparable. Aryan, with his easy grin and sharp wit, balanced June's quiet focus and dry humor. Together, they shared late-night study sessions, weekend hikes, and most memorably, the gym. What began as a casual pact to stay in shape quickly turned into a daily ritual. They pushed each other through deadlifts and heartbreaks, one rep and recovery at a time. The gym became more than just a place for physical transformation. It was their sanctuary. Aryan always knew when June needed silence, offering nothing but presence, letting the hum of machines and music speak for them. June, in return, understood when Aryan masked frustration behind a forced smile. He'd adjust the weight for him without asking, or crack a joke that pulled laughter from where there had only been strain. They grew together, physically and emotionally, in those shared hours. June trusted Aryan in ways he didn't trust most people. He'd tell Aryan about his dreams, his doubts, his family's pressure to succeed, and his fear of not being enough. Aryan always listened, never tried to fix it, just made space for it. That kind of support was rare, sacred, and yet something lingered under the surface, something unspoken. There were moments, brief, flickering things that left June breathless. Like the time Aryan had rested a hand on his shoulder after a hard workout, his touch lingering just a second too long, or how their eyes would lock during a laugh, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. But the spell always broke with a joke, or the clang of a dropped dumbbell, or Aryan's casual shrug. It was easy to pretend nothing was there, safer, because to risk that friendship meant losing the one person June truly depended on. Aryan had his own walls. He dated occasionally, girls who were nice, kind, but none who lasted long. June never asked why. Part of him didn't want to know. Another part already did. He could read Aryan's silences like a second language. Their bond deepened quietly. They celebrated each other's wins with high fives and cheat meals, mourned each other's losses with long drives and wordless company. When June's father passed away unexpectedly during their final year, Aryan was there within hours. He didn't say anything, just held June as he broke down in the parking lot of the funeral home, the streetlight casting long shadows on their embrace. After that, things changed subtly. June became more guarded. Aryan tried to be closer. There was a question that hovered between them, asked only in glances and the quiet ache of proximity. Neither dared answer it. Now, years later, they still worked out together every morning. Aryan brought the coffee. June set up the weights. It was routine, safe, steady, yet sometimes, in the mirror, June would catch Aryan watching him, not with admiration, not with affection, with longing. Still, nothing was said. Their friendship endured in the tension between knowing and not saying. A bond built on loyalty, sweat, shared history, and a truth too delicate to touch. Whatever it was, it remained between them, steady as a heartbeat, hidden beneath the rhythm of their friendship. June had always known how to wear a mask. He had grown up mastering the art of fitting in, speaking when spoken to, laughing on cue, adjusting his tone and expression to reflect what others needed from him. To his classmates, he was calm and dependable. To his family, he was the good son, obedient, focused, predictable. No one ever asked what was underneath. No one ever thought to. But lately, the mirror had stopped being his friend. Each morning as June stood before it, adjusting his collar or smoothing down his hair, something in the reflection looked wrong. Not physically exactly, it wasn't about features or style, but something deeper. The eyes that stared back at him felt unfamiliar, hollow, like the person in the mirror was a sketch of someone else, hastily drawn to please an audience. The questions began quietly, almost like whispers. Is this really me, or just who I've learned to be? He tried to ignore them at first. Life was easier that way, structured, planned, predictable. He had his routine, his goals, his list of things he was supposed to care about. But something inside had shifted, and no amount of order could quiet the noise that was building inside him. At school, the feeling intensified. He would find himself zoning out during lectures, staring blankly at his notebook while his mind wandered. Sometimes it drifted to abstract thoughts, like the concept of identity or the pressure to conform. Other times it turned inward, poking at memories he'd long buried. The times he laughed too loudly because everyone else was laughing, or the times he stayed silent when his gut told him to speak. In those moments, June felt like a stranger to himself. He began withdrawing in subtle ways. He stopped messaging friends as much, avoided small talk, and spent more time alone under the pretense of studying. But really, he was retreating, trying to peel away the layers of himself he had built over the years. It was exhausting. There was no manual for self-discovery, no checklist to follow, just confusion, doubt, and a sense of loss he couldn't quite name. One evening, June sat alone in his room, the low hum of the ceiling fan filling the silence. He stared at the wall, not thinking, just feeling, something he rarely allowed himself to do. His chest felt heavy, like a weight was pressing down on it. He didn't cry. He just sat there, motionless, as the realization settled in. I don't know who I am anymore. It scared him. It wasn't that he wanted to be someone else. It was that he didn't know who he'd be if he stopped performing. If he stopped playing the roles others expected of him, what would be left? Was there a real version of June beneath it all? Or just a collection of responses shaped by the world around him? He thought about the future, and for the first time, it didn't look like a straight line. It looked like fog, like uncertainty. But there was also a strange kind of freedom in that, something tender and terrifying at once. That night, June wrote in his journal. He hadn't written in months, but the words poured out, messy and raw. I feel like I'm unraveling, but maybe that's not the worst thing. Maybe I need to fall apart to find the truth beneath the mask. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't clarity. But it was honest. And for now, that was enough. The conflict had begun, yes. But so had the journey. The apartment was silent, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant whisper of passing cars. June sat on the edge of the bathtub, wrapped in a towel, her damp hair clinging to her neck. The mirror across from her was fogged at the edges, the center clear enough to reflect her image, an image she had avoided meeting for so long. But tonight was different. Tonight, there was no music, to drown out her thoughts. No scrolling through feeds to distract her. Just her, the mirror, and the weight of something she could no longer ignore. Her eyes flicked upward, locking with her reflection. For a moment, she almost looked away. Almost. But she didn't. She studied the curve of her jaw, the softness in her expression that had been creeping in with time. Her chest tightened, not with fear, not anymore, but with something far more tender. Recognition. She had spent years trying to crush the quiet voice inside, the one that whispered in dressing rooms, lingered in makeup aisles, and stirred when she saw herself in a dress during a Halloween party 3 years ago. That night, she'd smiled like she hadn't in years, but brushed it off as a joke, a one-time thing. The voice hadn't laughed, though. It had grown louder since then, louder and braver. Now June felt it like a presence standing beside her, silent but insistent. And she was tired. Tired of running from it. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached up and touched her face, tracing the faint line of her cheekbone, the slope of her nose. It wasn't about how she looked, not really. It was how she felt looking back. For the first time, she saw her, not a stranger, not someone pretending, just herself. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. A single drop slipped down her cheek, and then another. They weren't tears of sadness, not anymore. They were the kind that came from release, like an exhale held too long. "I think I've always known," she whispered to her reflection. The words felt raw, but true. I just didn't know I was allowed to say it. It wasn't a declaration shouted from rooftops. It wasn't a moment caught on camera or shared in a dramatic post. It was quiet, fragile, and deeply personal. But for June, it was everything. She smiled just a little, uncertain, but real. Then she said it gently, as if speaking it into the world made it more real. "I'm a woman." The mirror didn't laugh or frown or argue. It simply reflected her truth back to her. A softness settled into her chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel fractured. She didn't feel like she was hiding. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted. Now it lived beside something stronger. Hope. She stood slowly and walked to her bedroom. In the back of her closet was a dress she had bought over a year ago, telling herself it was for a costume party that never happened. She pulled it out, holding it against her body. It fit better now, not just in size, but in soul. As she slipped it on, her reflection shifted from possibility to presence. The woman in the mirror was not new, not a creation. She had always been there, waiting for June to see her, to accept her, to name her, and now, finally, she had. The night was still quiet, the world unchanged outside her window, but inside June's heart, everything was different. Therapy, research, emotional struggles, and the path to her true self. June always felt like she was living someone else's life. From a young age, the mirror reflected not just her face, but also her confusion. There were no words for it back then, only a gnawing discomfort, a sense of disconnection between how she felt inside and what the world expected from her. For years, she buried those feelings under layers of compliance and self-denial, playing roles that society had written for her. It wasn't until her late 20s that everything began to unravel, gently at first, then like a tide crashing in. The breaking point was subtle, an offhand remark from a friend, a quiet moment of reflection in a grocery store parking lot, a dream that left her in tears. It was clear she couldn't continue pretending. June decided, with a mixture of fear and fierce resolve, to seek help. Therapy was the first step. Sitting in that quiet room with a compassionate therapist felt both terrifying and liberating. For months, she spoke in fragments. Shame, confusion, anxiety. They tangled together, knotting her thoughts. But slowly, the knots loosened. Her therapist gave her language, validation, and space to explore her gender identity without judgment. There were no declarations, no immediate answers, just questions, tears, and the slow emergence of clarity. As she opened herself up in therapy, June began to do her own research. She devoured memoirs by trans women, watched documentaries, scoured forums late into the night. With each story, each shared experience, a piece of herself clicked into place. The words transgender and transition no longer felt foreign or scary. They felt like home. But understanding didn't mean peace. June grappled with emotional storms, grief for the years lost in hiding, fear of how her family would react, and crushing uncertainty about the future. There were days she felt euphoria just imagining a life where she could be herself. And there were nights when doubt screamed louder than anything else. Coming out was a process, not a moment. She told a close friend first, her voice shaking. The friend cried and then hugged her. Encouraged, June shared with her therapist her decision to begin socially transitioning. Each step, changing her name, her pronouns, her wardrobe, was a leap across a chasm of fear. But with each leap came freedom. Her name, June, came to her during a therapy session. It felt soft and strong, like sunlight after rain. It didn't erase her past, but redefined it, threading her history into a narrative of resilience. There were missteps and misunderstandings. A sibling withdrew for a while. Her workplace struggled to adapt. Dysphoria didn't vanish overnight. But the small moments, the first time a stranger called her ma'am, the first time she looked in the mirror and saw a glimpse of the woman she knew herself to be, made the hardship bearable. June's journey is still unfolding. Transition, she's learned, isn't a destination, but an ongoing act of becoming. She continues therapy, now focusing on healing and building confidence. She mentors others just beginning to question their identities, offering what she once needed most, understanding, patience, and hope. There's still fear sometimes and sadness too, but there is joy, real, grounded joy in being known, in being seen, in living as herself. June is not just transitioning, she is transforming. And in every step she takes, she reclaims the life that was always meant to be hers. Criticism, rejection, and inner battles challenge her, but she grows stronger with each step. The weight of society's gaze had always followed her. It lingered in the raised eyebrows of strangers, in whispered comments barely hidden behind cupped hands, and in the unspoken expectations that surrounded every decision she made. From an early age, she felt the sting of judgment, not because she was doing anything wrong, but simply because she dared to be herself. Criticism came in waves. It wasn't always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it wore a smile, polite, but laced with condescension. People questioned her choices, her clothes, her career, the way she spoke, even how she chose to spend her time. "Are you sure that's the right path?" they'd ask. Their voices dipped in doubt. "You might want to tone it down a little," they'd say, as if confidence were something to be ashamed of. She listened at first, tried to blend in, tried to please. She softened her words, adjusted her dreams, and trimmed parts of herself to fit into the narrow space society had carved out for women like her. But with every compromise, something inside her dimmed. The more she tried to meet expectations, the more she lost sight of who she truly was. Rejection followed soon after. Some people distanced themselves the moment she stepped outside the mold. Friends grew quiet, doors closed, opportunities disappeared, not because she wasn't capable, but because she no longer fit the image others had in mind. It hurt deeply. Not just the loss, but the realization that her worth had always been conditional. Conditional on her obedience, conditional on her silence. And yet, amid the pain, something remarkable began to stir. In the loneliness of rejection, she found a rare kind of freedom. No longer beholden to others' approval, she started asking herself what she truly wanted, what she believed, what she loved. And that's when the inner battles began. Quiet wars fought in the dark corners of her mind. Doubt screamed louder than ever. Fear told her to go back, to make herself small again. But something stronger had awakened, something resilient. Each time she stood her ground, each time she made a choice for herself rather than others, she grew. It wasn't an easy road. Some days the weight of judgment nearly crushed her. Some days she doubted whether she had the strength to keep going, but she did. Slowly, step by step, she began to rebuild, not into what others wanted her to be, but into the person she was always meant to become. She learned to carry herself with quiet confidence. She spoke her truth, even when her voice trembled. She surrounded herself with people who saw her not for who they wanted her to be, but for who she was. And she gave herself grace on the days she faltered. The world hadn't changed. Judgment still lurked. Criticism still whispered. But she had changed. She no longer let those voices define her. She no longer feared rejection because she had already faced the worst and survived. Her scars were not signs of defeat, but of growth. Proof that she had walked through fire and emerged stronger. In the end, she realized that society's judgment was never really about her. It was about fear, control, and conformity. By choosing authenticity, she challenged those forces not with anger or rebellion, but with strength and grace. She still walks that path today, unapologetically herself, brave in the face of judgment, and stronger with every step. From the very beginning, Aryan saw something in June that others missed. Where the world labeled her complicated, unpredictable, or guarded, he saw resilience, depth, and a quiet brilliance waiting to unfold. His love didn't arrive with fanfare or promises of perfection. It came softly but steadily, like the tide, always returning, no matter the weather. June's journey wasn't linear. She changed, sometimes subtly, other times in ways that shook the foundation of her identity. There were days when she doubted everything, her past choices, her dreams, even her worth. Through each shift, each unraveling and rebuilding, Aryan never wavered. When she pulled away, overwhelmed by emotions she didn't yet know how to name, Aryan gave her space without disappearing. When she returned, vulnerable and uncertain, he met her with warmth and without judgment. In moments of silence, when words felt too heavy to say aloud, Aryan spoke with actions. He listened, really listened, not to reply, but to understand. He held her hand during the stormiest nights, sat beside her through painful reckonings with her past, and celebrated quietly when she took small steps forward. His presence was not performative. It was real. It was patient. It was love that asked for nothing but the chance to walk beside her. There were times when June tried to push him away, not out of malice, but fear. Fear that he would see the parts of her she had kept hidden and decide she was too much. But Aryan didn't flinch. He didn't run. Instead, he stood firm, offering the kind of steady affection that didn't depend on her being okay all the time. To him, her messiness wasn't a burden. It was part of her becoming. As June peeled back the layers of her identity and reclaimed parts of herself she had long denied, Aryan's love adapted. He didn't cling to the person she was at the start. Instead, he embraced each version of her as she evolved. When she questioned old beliefs, changed her goals, or redefined what happiness looked like, Aryan didn't resist. He grew with her. His support wasn't conditional on her staying the same. It was rooted in who she was at her core, and his unwavering belief in who she was becoming. More than anything, Aryan made her feel safe. Safe to fall apart, safe to rebuild, safe to dream out loud. In a world that often asked her to shrink or fit a mold, Aryan encouraged her to take up space, to be bold, to trust her voice. He didn't try to fix her. He simply stood with her while she did the hard work herself. Their love wasn't perfect. They argued. They misunderstood each other. There were nights of frustration and mornings heavy with unspoken worries. But even then, Aryan's commitment never faltered. He apologized when he was wrong, listened even when it was hard, and reminded her again and again that she didn't have to face anything alone. By the time June looked in the mirror and finally saw someone she loved and respected, Aryan was still there, his love stronger than ever, not because she had arrived at some final version of herself, but because he had always seen the beauty in her becoming. Aryan's love wasn't just romantic, it was foundational. It wasn't flashy, but it was fierce. It stood beside her when she doubted, lifted her when she fell, and cheered for her even when she couldn't cheer for herself. Through every stage, every breakdown, breakthrough, and quiet transformation, Aryan remained by her side. In doing so, he didn't just witness her growth. He became part of it. For years, June had drifted through life like a shadow, hesitant and unsure of herself. She had always been the quiet one, blending into the background, afraid to draw attention or make waves. But deep inside, beneath layers of self-doubt and insecurity, there had always been a flicker of something vibrant, strong, and unapologetically feminine. The turning point came slowly, almost imperceptibly one morning, when she looked in the mirror and truly saw herself for the first time, not the person she thought she should be, or who others expected her to be. Uncovered pieces of herself that had long been buried beneath layers of hesitation. Her wardrobe evolved too. Gone were the oversized sweaters and shapeless jeans that masked her form. Instead, she embraced clothes that celebrated her curves and highlighted her natural beauty. Silks, lace, soft fabrics that felt like a caress against her skin. She learned the art of makeup not to cover up, but to enhance what was already there. Her sparkling eyes, her radiant smile. The process was slow and sometimes awkward, but with every step, June grew more comfortable in her own skin. The most profound change, however, was in her mindset. She learned to speak up for herself, to set boundaries, and to say no without guilt. Confidence blossomed from within, fed by self-respect and the understanding that her voice mattered. She stopped seeking approval from others and began trusting her own judgment. The woman who once shrank from confrontation now faced challenges with grace and determination. Embracing her femininity was a journey of self-love and acceptance. June realized femininity was not about fitting into a narrow mold of what society expected. It was about authenticity, the freedom to express softness, strength, vulnerability, and power all at once. She reveled in the joy of being unapologetically herself, no longer hiding behind masks or walls. Her relationships shifted as well. People were drawn to her newfound energy and genuine warmth. Friends noticed a spark in her eyes, a lightness in her laughter. June attracted those who appreciated her true self, creating deeper and more meaningful connections. Romantic possibilities opened up, but she no longer sought validation from others to feel worthy. Instead, she approached love from a place of abundance and self-assurance. At work, June's confidence translated into ambition. She voiced ideas with conviction, took on leadership roles, and inspired colleagues with her passion. Success followed naturally because she was no longer held back by fear or self-doubt. Her empowerment was not loud or aggressive, but grounded in quiet strength and clarity. Most importantly, June became her own best friend. She learned to nurture herself, celebrate her achievements, and forgive her mistakes. Each day was a new opportunity to grow and shine. The mirror that once reflected uncertainty now reflected a woman radiant with purpose and pride. June's new identity was a testament to the power of transformation, the power of embracing who you truly are and stepping into your light. She was no longer a shadow, but a beacon, a woman confident, beautiful, and empowered, living fully as her authentic self. Aryan's hands trembled slightly as he reached for hers. The evening air was soft and warm, the golden light of the setting sun filtering through the trees around them. They stood in the quiet park where they had first met, the place where their friendship had blossomed over time into something deeper, though neither had dared to name it until now. He took a deep breath, searching her eyes. "There's something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time," Aryan began, voice low but steady. "Not just something. I want to tell you everything that's in my heart." She smiled gently, sensing the gravity of the moment. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready for," she said softly. "No." Aryan shook his head, squeezing her hand. "I've never been more ready. I need you to know how I really feel, because it's not about labels or definitions for me. It's about you, about us." His eyes glistened with quiet emotion. "I've loved you for so long, not because of a title or a name I give it. It's more than that. It's the way my heart races when you smile at me. The way I want to be the person you can lean on no matter what. It's the way I think of you at night, and the way I want to share every part of my life with you." She blinked back a tear, her breath catching. "Aryan, I... He held up a finger gently. Please let me finish. I know we've talked about being just friends, and I never wanted to pressure you or complicate things. But the truth is, I can't imagine my life without you, and I don't want to hide what I feel anymore. I want to be with you, really be with you in whatever way you feel comfortable, because this, whatever it is, it's real, and it's forever. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Her eyes widened in surprise, but Aryan kept his gaze steady, full of hope and vulnerability. This isn't just a ring, he said softly, opening the box to reveal a simple band with a delicate engraving. It's a promise that I will stand by you, support you, and love you, not because of what anyone says we should be, but because I choose you every day. No conditions, no labels, just us. Tears spilled freely now, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy, relief, and overwhelming love. She looked at Aryan, who waited patiently, his whole soul laid bare in that one moment. Will you be with me? He asked, voice trembling but fierce with hope. Not because of a name or a category, but because we're right for each other. Will you let me love you in whatever way feels true for you? She took a deep breath, reaching out to cup his face, her fingers trembling. Yes, she whispered, I will. I want that too. You've always been more than a label to me. You're my best friend, my safe place, my heart, and I want forever with you. Aryan's face broke into a radiant smile as he slipped the ring onto her finger. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, feeling the unspoken promise between them, an unbreakable bond forged not by words or titles, but by love itself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they knew this was only the beginning of their forever. Together, true love is often mistaken as something that begins with the perfect face, the ideal figure, or the flawless exterior. But the reality, the beautiful truth, is that love doesn't start there. It starts much deeper with something far more profound, loving yourself. When you embrace your own worth, your own uniqueness, you open the door to genuine connection, not just with others, but with life itself. In a world that often highlights surface-level beauty and fleeting impressions, it takes courage to look beyond appearances. It takes bravery to stand tall and say, I am enough. That very declaration is the seed from which true love blossomed. When you cultivate kindness and compassion within your own heart, you create a space where love can grow. Love that isn't conditional or superficial, but real and enduring. Imagine two souls coming together, not because they fit a certain mold or meet external expectations, but because they see each other's essence. They see the laughter behind the eyes, the scars that tell stories of resilience, the dreams whispered in silence. This kind of union isn't about changing to fit someone else's ideal. It's about celebrating the imperfect, beautiful mosaic of who each person truly is. When we love ourselves fully, we stop chasing validation from others. We no longer settle for love that dims our light or asks us to hide parts of ourselves. Instead, we attract connections that nurture us, that celebrate our strengths, and hold us gently through our vulnerabilities. In this sacred space, love flourishes, not just as a feeling, but as a powerful force that heals, transforms, and uplifts. The beauty of such a union is that it teaches us something invaluable. Appearances fade, but the soul's light remains. What truly matters is the kindness we show, the honesty we share, and the respect we give, not only to others, but to ourselves. Loving yourself is the foundation upon which all other love is built. It's the first step toward finding someone who cherishes you not just for how you look, but for who you are. In the end, love is less about perfection and more about acceptance. It's about two imperfect people choosing to walk life's journey hand in hand, embracing each other's flaws, strengths, and everything in between. It's about knowing that no matter what the world may say, you are deserving of love simply because you exist. So, let your heart be open to the kind of love that sees you, the real you, the one who's a little messy, sometimes uncertain, but endlessly worthy. Start with yourself. Give yourself the same compassion, patience, and care you wish to receive. Because when you do, you'll find that love doesn't need to look a certain way, it just needs to be genuine. And in that genuine love, you will discover a warmth that transcends appearances, a warmth that brings two souls together in a union, filled with understanding, respect, and boundless joy. This is the love that lasts. This is the love that heals. This is the love that begins with